The stars looked peaceful through the viewing window of the horizon's edge. Captain Hyunwoo stood with his hands behind his back, watching the distant glow of the Coalition space station. He had been a starship captain for 12 years now, and in all that time he had learned one important truth about the galaxy. The other species did not respect humans. It was not obvious at first. The aliens were polite enough when they spoke to him. They smiled their strange smiles and nodded their odd heads. But Hyunwoo could see it in their eyes. They thought humans were weak. They thought humans were children playing at being grown-ups in a galaxy far too dangerous for them. His communications officer, a young woman named Ji-won, turned in her chair. She had been a scientist before joining his crew, specializing in alien biology and culture. Captain, the Coalition summit begins in 1 hour. Ambassador Daeho is requesting our presence, Hyunwoo nodded. Tell him we will be there.
Is Taeyang finished with the engine repairs?
Almost done, sir. He says another 30 minutes. Taeyang was the youngest member of the bridge crew, barely 25 years old, but he understood the ship's engines better than anyone Hyunwoo had ever met. The boy had magic in his fingers when it came to machinery. The summit hall was enormous, designed to hold representatives from hundreds of different species. Hyunwoo walked beside Ambassador Daeho, an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. Daeho had been arguing with the Coalition for 3 decades, trying to make them listen to human concerns. It had not worked very well. The Krell dominated the hall. They were an ancient species, tall and thin with skin like polished stone. They had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, and they knew it. Their leader, High Counselor Vex, looked down at the gathered species with obvious boredom. We gather today to discuss the continued expansion of the Valos Empire, Vex announced. His voice was cold and mechanical. Several minor species have expressed concern about their territorial claims in the Outer Rim. Ambassador Daeho stood up. With respect, High Counselor, this is not a minor concern. The Valos Empire has attacked 17 colony worlds in the past year. They are not simply claiming empty space. They are taking worlds with established populations. The Krell Counselor looked at Daeho the way someone might look at a small dog, barking at nothing.
Ambassador, your species is still learning the ways of civilized galactic society.
The Valos are expanding, yes, but they follow proper protocols. They have filed the appropriate territorial claims. They filed claims after they attacked, Daeho said. His voice was rising now, frustration bleeding through his diplomatic training. They are killing civilians and then pretending the worlds were empty. Our colony on New Jeju has stopped responding to all communications. We believe the Valos have attacked them. Another alien species, the Threen, made a sound like laughter. Their representative spoke with amusement in his voice. Humans always believe someone is attacking them. Your species sees threats everywhere. Perhaps your colony simply experienced technical difficulties. We have sent 3 automated drones to check, Daeho insisted. All 3 were destroyed before they could enter orbit. That is not technical difficulties. That is military action. High Counselor Vex raised one long hand and the room fell silent. Ambassador Daeho, the Coalition appreciates your passion. However, we cannot make military decisions based on human paranoia. Your species has only been part of the Coalition for 50 years. We have maintained galactic peace for 50,000 years. Trust that we know how to handle these situations. Hyunwoo watched his ambassador's shoulders slump. The old man sat down slowly, defeated once again. The rest of the summit was useless talk about trade agreements and resource allocation. Nobody wanted to discuss the Valos threat. Nobody wanted to admit that something dangerous was happening. After the summit ended, Hyunwoo found himself in a side corridor with Ji-won. She looked angry, which was unusual for her. Ji-won usually stayed calm no matter what happened. They are not going to help us, she said quietly. Even if New Jeju has been destroyed, they will not help us. I know, Hyunwoo replied. Why do they hate us so much? They do not hate us. They just think we are not important. Hyunwoo looked out a window at the stars beyond. We are a young species. We only reached the stars 200 years ago. Most of these species have been traveling space for millions of years. To them we are babies, loud annoying babies who complain too much. 3 days later, the horizon's edge arrived at New Jeju. Hyunwoo knew something was wrong before they even entered orbit. There were no communication signals. No lights from the cities below. No ships in orbit. Just silence. Captain, Taeyang said from his station, I am reading debris in orbit. Lots of it. Metal, plastics, organic matter. Sir, I think these are ship remains. Hyunwoo felt cold. How many ships? At least 40, maybe more. They are all civilian vessels, colony transports, cargo ships, a few small defensive fighters. Take us down, Hyunwoo ordered. I want to see the main colony. What they found below was worse than anyone had imagined. The colony was gone, not damaged or partially destroyed, but completely erased. The main settlement, which had housed over 200,000 people, was now just a crater. The buildings were melted slag. The streets were rivers of glass where the heat had been so intense it fused the ground itself. Ji-won worked at the science station, her face pale. Captain, I am detecting Valos energy signatures everywhere. Their weapons leave a specific radiation pattern. There is no doubt who did this. Any survivors? Hyunwoo asked, though he already knew the answer. No life signs anywhere in the settlement. I am checking the surrounding areas. She paused, then her voice broke. Captain, I found something. A shelter about 20 kilometers from the main colony. It was reinforced, probably meant for emergencies. And it was destroyed from the inside. They used plasma weapons. The people inside had surrendered, Captain. The shelter's defensive systems were shut down. The doors were open. The Valos went in and killed them anyway. Men, women, children, everyone. The bridge was silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Hyunwoo made himself look at the data on the screen. 300,000 people had lived on New Jeju. 300,000 human beings who had traveled across the galaxy to build a new home. Now they were all dead. Document everything, he said quietly. Every piece of evidence. Every energy signature. Every burned building. I want a complete record. What are you going to do? Ji-won asked. I am going to show the coalition exactly what the Valos Empire does, and then I am going to demand that they take action. 2 days later, Hyunwoo stood before the coalition council again. Ambassador Daeho sat in the front row, his face like stone. Hyunwoo had sent him all the data first. The old man had not slept since seeing it. The viewing screens around the chamber showed the images from New Jeju, the melted cities, the destroyed shelters, the bodies they had found in the few structures that remained partially intact. 300,000 people, murdered for the crime of existing. High Counselor Vex watched the images with no expression on his face. When the presentation ended, he spoke calmly. This is indeed tragic. However, Captain Hyunwoo, we have no direct evidence that the Valos Empire is responsible. Energy signatures can be faked. Perhaps this was an internal human conflict. Hyunwoo could not believe what he was hearing. You think humans destroyed their own colony? Why would we do that? To create an excuse for war, another counselor suggested. Your species is known for being aggressive and territorial. Perhaps this is a false flag operation. Ambassador Daeho stood up, his voice shaking with rage. My grandson lived on New Jeju. He was 7 years old. Are you suggesting I murdered my own grandson to create evidence? The council chamber filled with uncomfortable silence. High Counselor Vex finally spoke. We express our deepest sympathies for your loss, Ambassador. The coalition will file a formal inquiry into this incident. However, we cannot authorize military action based on circumstantial evidence. The Valos Empire has stated that New Jeju was abandoned when they arrived. Without proof otherwise, we must accept their statement. Hyunwoo looked around the chamber at all the different alien species. Some looked uncomfortable. Most looked indifferent. None of them looked willing to help. So that is it, he said. 300,000 humans are dead and you will do nothing? We will file an inquiry, Vex repeated. That is the civilized way to handle such matters. Hyunwoo turned and walked out of the chamber. Ambassador Daeho followed him along with Ji-won. In the corridor outside, the three of them stood together in silence. They are not going to help us, Ji-won said again. No, Hyunwoo agreed. They are not. Daeho looked at them both. The old man suddenly looked very tired and very old. Then we help ourselves, he said quietly. I am going back to Earth. I am going to tell our government exactly what happened here today. The coalition will not protect us, so we must protect ourselves, Hyunwoo nodded. He thought about the 300,000 dead on New Jeju. He thought about his crew, about Ji-won and Taeyang and all the other humans serving on ships across the galaxy. He thought about Earth, and all the other human colonies scattered among the stars. The emergency session of the Human Assembly began exactly 3 hours after Ambassador Daeho returned to Earth. Every representative was present. Nobody wanted to miss this moment. Everyone understood that something important was about to happen. Admiral Su-min sat in the military section, her uniform perfectly pressed. her face showing nothing. She had commanded the human defense fleet for 8 years. In all that time, the fleet had done nothing but train and wait. The galaxy was peaceful, they said. Humans were protected by the coalition, they said. She had always known those were lies. Premier Insu, the elected leader of Earth's unified government, stood at the central podium. He was a calm man normally, known for his measured words and careful decisions. Today he looked like he wanted to hit something. Members of the assembly, he began. 3 days ago, we lost contact with our colony on New Jeju. 2 days ago, Captain Hyunwoo confirmed our worst fears. The colony is gone. All 300,000 citizens are dead. The Valos Empire destroyed them completely. When we brought this evidence to the coalition, they refused to act. They called our evidence circumstantial. They suggested we might have destroyed our own colony. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Representatives shouted over each other, demanding action, demanding justice, demanding war. Premier Insu let them rage for a full minute before raising his hand for silence. The vote is simple, he said. Do we accept the coalition's protection and wait for their investigation? Or do we protect ourselves? The vote was unanimous. Every single representative voted for independence. The human defense fleet would mobilize immediately. All human ships would return to human space. All border colonies would be fortified or evacuated. And if the Valos Empire attacked again, they would find something they did not expect. They would find humans ready to fight back. Admiral Su Min stood in the command center of the Indomitable, the flagship of the human defense fleet. The ship was massive, one of 12 carriers that formed the backbone of human military power. Around her, officers worked at their stations, coordinating the recall of hundreds of ships scattered across the galaxy. Admiral, the coalition is requesting a meeting, her communications officer reported. They say they are concerned about our military mobilization. Tell them I am too busy, Su Min replied. Tell them we are conducting routine exercises. They will not believe that, Admiral. I do not care what they believe. 2 hours later, a Krell shuttle arrived at Earth orbit without permission. High Counselor Vex himself had come, which showed how worried the coalition was becoming. Su Min met him in a conference room along with Premier Insu and several other military commanders. Vex looked around the room with his cold, stone-like face. Your military mobilization is causing concern among coalition members. This appears to be preparation for war. It is preparation for defense, Premier Insu corrected. Since the coalition will not protect our colonies, we must protect them ourselves. Your colonies are safe, Vex insisted. The incident at New Jeju was tragic but isolated. The Valos Empire has no intention of further expansion. General Young Sik, commander of the human ground forces, laughed bitterly. They destroyed an entire colony and you call it isolated? What would you call it if they destroyed 10 colonies? A minor disagreement? Vex ignored him and focused on Premier Insu. You must understand humans are still newcomers to the galaxy. You do not understand how things work. The coalition maintains peace through careful diplomacy and measured responses. Your aggressive mobilization could trigger the very war you claim to want to avoid. We do not want war, Insu said quietly. But we will not sit defenseless while our people are murdered. The coalition had a chance to protect us. You chose not to. Now we will handle our own protection. This is a mistake, Vex warned. Your species is young and emotional. You make decisions based on fear and anger rather than logic and wisdom. This will end badly for you. Admiral Su Min stepped forward. She was shorter than the Krell counselor, but somehow she seemed to fill more space. Counselor Vex, let me be very clear. Human ships will defend human worlds. If the Valos Empire attacks us again, we will respond with force. If the coalition tries to interfere with our defense, we will consider that an act of war. You may leave now. Vex stared at her for a long moment. Then he left without another word. After he was gone, General Young Sik grinned. That was beautiful, Admiral. Did you see his face? I saw it, Su Min replied. But do not celebrate yet. We just declared our independence from coalition protection. Now we have to prove we can actually defend ourselves. Captain Hyunwoo received his new orders while the horizon's edge was still near coalition space. The message was short and clear. Return to Earth immediately. Report for military duty. All exploration missions were suspended indefinitely. Ji-won read the orders over his shoulder. They are preparing for war. They are preparing to defend us, Hyunwoo corrected. There is a difference. Is there? War is war, Captain. Hyun-woo thought about the bodies on New Jeju. Sometimes you have to fight, not because you want to, but because the alternative is worse. Taeyang was excited when he heard they were going back to Earth. The young engineer had been born on Earth and missed it. He did not understand yet what was really happening. He would learn soon enough. When they arrived at Earth orbit, Hyun-woo barely recognized the system. Ships filled the space around the planet. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. The entire human defense fleet had gathered here. Transport ships moved between them, carrying supplies and personnel. Fighter craft practiced maneuvers in designated zones. It looked like humanity was preparing to fight the entire galaxy. The Horizon's Edge docked at a military station, and Hyun-woo was immediately summoned to a briefing. He expected to be reassigned to a warship. Instead, he found himself in a classified laboratory deep inside the station. Dr. Mi-sun met him at the entrance. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and graying hair. She had been developing weapon systems for the human defense fleet for 20 years. "Captain Hyun-woo," she said, shaking his hand. "I have been reading your reports from New Jeju. Very thorough work. Come with me. I want to show you something." She led him through security checkpoints and locked doors until they reached a laboratory that looked like something from a science fiction movie. Weapons of all sizes filled the space. Some were small enough to hold in one hand. Others were massive, clearly designed for ship-mounted installations. "What is all this?" Hyun-woo asked. "This is what we have been building for the past 50 years, Mi-sun said with a small smile. While the coalition thought we were just happy little humans, grateful to be part of their society, we were studying. Every technology we encountered, we learned it, understood it, and improved it. The coalition shares technology freely, because they think no young species could possibly improve on designs that are millions of years old. They were wrong." She picked up a small device that looked like a pistol. "This is a plasma weapon. Standard coalition design can fire 20 shots before overheating. Ours can fire 200 shots and hit targets 3 times farther away. The coalition version takes 5 seconds to charge between shots. Ours fires continuously." Taeyang, who had followed them into the lab, looked like a child in a toy store. "How did you improve it so much?" "We are humans," Mi-sun said simply. "We take old things and make them better. It is what we do. The coalition species are ancient and wise, but they stopped innovating millions of years ago. They are comfortable. They are safe. They have forgotten how to think differently." She walked to a larger weapon mounted on a testing platform. "This is a quantum disruptor. The theory has existed in the coalition for thousands of years, but nobody ever built one because it was considered too unstable, too dangerous. We built it, it works. It can phase through any known shield technology and tear apart matter at the molecular level." "Why are you showing me this?" Hyun-woo asked. "Because you and your crew are being reassigned. The Horizon's Edge is going to be retrofitted with every experimental weapon system we have developed. You are going to field test them in combat." Hyun-woo felt his stomach drop. "Combat against who?" "Against whoever attacks us next." 3 days later, the Valos Empire made their next move. They did not attack just one colony. They attacked 3 simultaneously. The worlds were small with populations of only 50 to 80,000 each, but that did not matter. The Valos wanted to send a message. They wanted to show humanity that they could strike anywhere, anytime, and nobody would stop them. They broadcast their attacks across the galaxy, showing their war machines destroying human settlements. They showed their soldiers marching through burning streets. They showed the bodies they left behind. It was meant to terrify humanity into surrender. Instead, it did something else. Admiral Sumin watched the broadcasts from the bridge of the Indomitable. Her officers stood silent around her, watching the images of dead civilians, burning buildings, crying children. She let them watch. She wanted them to see. She wanted them to remember. When the broadcast ended, she activated her fleet-wide communication. Every ship in the human defense fleet, every soldier, every pilot, every crew member heard her voice. The Valos fortress at Border Station 12 was supposed to be impregnable. It had shields that could withstand the firepower of 100 ships. It had weapons that could destroy approaching vessels from 1,000,000 kilometers away. It had defensive fighters, automated turrets, and backup systems for the backup systems. The Valos military had spent 50 years building it, and they were proud of their creation. They thought nothing could touch it. They were wrong. Admiral Sumin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and studied the tactical display. The fortress sat in the center of the screen, surrounded by 300 Valos warships. Intel suggested another 200 ships were stationed nearby, ready to respond to any threat. It was a force designed to stop any attack the Coalition could mount, but the Coalition was not attacking. Humans were. "Admiral, we are receiving a communication from the Valos commander," her communications officer reported. "He is laughing. Put it on screen." A Valos officer appeared, his scaled face showing clear amusement. The Valos looked somewhat like Earth's reptiles, but larger and with more intelligence in their eyes. This one wore the markings of a high commander. "Human vessels, you are trespassing in Valos territory. You should turn back now before we are forced to destroy you. We outnumber you 3-1. Your primitive ships are no match for Valos military might. We give you this one chance to flee." "Take it," Suman smiled coldly. "This is Admiral Suman of the Human Defense Fleet. You murdered our people at New Jeju. You murdered our people at 3 more colonies just days ago. We are not here to talk. We are here for justice. Surrender now, or we will take it." The Valos commander actually laughed out loud. "You humans are even more foolish than we thought. Very well, we will enjoy destroying you. It will be a lesson to the rest of your species." The communication ended. The Valos fleet began moving into attack formation, confident and unhurried. They expected an easy victory. They expected the humans to break and run when the shooting started. "All ships," Suman said calmly, "execute attack pattern Delta. Show them what we can do." The human defense fleet split into smaller groups and accelerated toward the enemy. The Valos opened fire first, filling space with energy weapons and missiles. Their first volley should have destroyed dozens of human ships. Instead, the human vessels weaved through the attack with impossible precision. Their movements coordinated like a dance. Commander Haywan led the fighter wing, 300 small craft moving in perfect formation. She was one of the best pilots humanity had ever produced, and today she would prove it. Her squadron dove through the enemy fire, moving so fast and so unpredictably that the Valos targeting systems could not keep up. "All fighters, break formation on my mark," she ordered. 3, 2, 1, break. The human fighters scattered in 100 different directions, each pilot following their own path, each one impossible to predict. It looked like chaos to the Valos observers. It was actually carefully controlled madness, a tactic that only worked when your pilots were skilled enough and brave enough to fly that close to death. The first Valos defensive line collapsed in minutes. Human fighters hit them from every angle, using weapons that tore through their shields like they did not exist. The quantum disruptors that Dr. Misun had developed worked exactly as designed. They phased through the Valos shields and exploded inside the ships themselves. "Impossible," the Valos commander was shouting now, his amusement gone. "How are they doing this? How are their weapons penetrating our shields?" The answer was simple. Humans had spent 50 years studying every technology in the galaxy. They had learned, adapted, and improved. The Coalition species had stopped innovating long ago, comfortable in their ancient superiority. Humans had never stopped trying to get better. Captain Hyunwoo brought the Horizon's Edge into the battle with his crew ready at their stations. The experimental weapons loaded on his ship had never been tested in real combat. Today they would see if Dr. Misun's designs actually worked. "Jiwan, target the fortress shield generator," he ordered. "Taeyang, prepare the main cannon." "Captain, that fortress is massive," Jiwan warned. "Our weapons might not be strong enough." "Then we find out together. Fire when ready." The Horizon's Edge opened fire with its new railgun system. The weapon used electromagnets to launch projectiles at incredible speeds. The rounds were solid metal, no explosives, no energy fields, just metal moving so fast it carried more kinetic energy than a nuclear weapon. The first round hit the fortress shield, and the entire defensive barrier flickered. The second round hit and the shield collapsed completely. The third round hit the fortress itself, punching a hole straight through 3 decks of armor. "Impossible," Jiwan whispered, staring at her readings. "We just penetrated fortress-grade armor with kinetic weapons." "How is that possible?" "Because we kept improving while they stayed the same," Hyunwoo replied. "Reload and fire again. Aim for their weapon systems." The battle turned quickly. The Valos ships were stronger and had better shields, but they moved predictably. They followed standard military doctrine, doing exactly what their training and programming told them to do. Human ships moved like living things, adapting and changing tactics moment by moment. Colonel Jae-hyun led the ground assault teams that infiltrated the fortress, while the space battle raged outside. His Special Operations Forces used stealth technology adapted from coalition designs and improved beyond recognition. They moved through the fortress like ghosts, appearing in critical locations, destroying key systems, and disappearing before the Valos could respond. Team 2, hit their command center, Jae-hyun ordered over the comm. Team 3, destroy their communication array. I want them blind and deaf. His soldiers moved with deadly efficiency. They had trained for years for missions like this, studying Valos tactics and technology. They knew every weakness in Valos armor, every flaw in Valos base design. They exploited all of it. In the fortress command center, the Valos commander watched his perfect defense fall apart. Human ships were everywhere, their weapons tearing through his fleet like it was made of paper. Human soldiers were inside the fortress itself, destroying everything they touched. He had thought humans were weak. He had been wrong. Send a distress signal to the homeworld, he ordered. Tell them we need reinforcements immediately. Sir, our communication array is offline. We cannot send anything. Then fix it. Sir, human soldiers are in the communication room. They have taken it over. The commander stared at his displays, watching his ships die one by one. How is this possible? They are just humans. They are a young species. They should not be able to do this. His tactical officer looked up from his station, fear clear in his eyes. Commander, I do not think we understand what humans really are. I do not think anyone does. The Battle of Border Station 12 lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Valos fortress was captured. Their fleet was destroyed. Human casualties were minimal. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Admiral Su-min stood in the captured command center, looking at the Valos commander who kneeled before her, his weapons surrendered, his pride broken. You will send a message to your homeworld, she said coldly. You will tell them that humans are coming. You will tell them to return every prisoner they have taken from our colonies. You will tell them to surrender completely. If they refuse, we will come to their homeworld and we will take what we want by force. The Valos commander looked up at her. You cannot win against the entire Valos Empire. We have thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. Then you will lose thousands of ships and millions of soldiers, Su-min replied. Because we will not stop. We will never stop. Not until every human who was taken is returned. Not until every colony that was destroyed is avenged. Send your message. Across the galaxy, the coalition watched in shock. The Krell High Council called an emergency meeting. How had humans defeated a Valos fortress? How had they done it so quickly? What weapons were they using? High Counselor Vex stood before the council, no longer looking bored or superior. We made a mistake, he said quietly. We assumed humans were weak because they are young. We assumed their emotions made them irrational and easy to manipulate. We were wrong. Their emotions make them strong. Their desire to protect their own gives them motivation we cannot match. And while we rested on our ancient superiority, they were studying, learning, and improving. Another counselor spoke up. What do we do? If humans can defeat the Valos this easily, they could threaten any species in the galaxy. We do nothing, Vex replied. We made the situation. We refused to help them when they asked. We insulted them, dismissed them, ignored their warnings. Now they have decided to help themselves, and we must live with the consequences. The Valos Empire refused to surrender. Instead, they called their allies. The Threen Collective and the Mordax clans answered the call. 3 major military powers against one young human species. They gathered their fleets and prepared to crush humanity before it could become an even greater threat. They thought 3 against 1 was enough. They were wrong. Captain Hyun-woo sat in his quarters aboard the Horizon's Edge, reading the latest intelligence reports. Ji-won sat across from him, her face troubled. The war spread across the galaxy like fire. Admiral Su-min kept her promise. She split the human defense fleet into 3 task forces and attacked all 3 enemy powers at the same time. It was a strategy that should have failed. Military doctrine said you never divided your forces when outnumbered. But humans were writing new doctrine now. Task Force Alpha under Admiral Su-min herself struck at the heart of Valos space. Task Force Beta, led by Admiral Dong-hyun, attacked the Threen Collective. Task Force Gamma, commanded by Admiral Yujin, hit the Mordax clans. The galaxy expected at least one task force to be destroyed. Instead, all 3 won their initial engagements. The enemy alliance could not understand what was happening. How were humans winning everywhere at once? How were their weapons so effective? How were their tactics so unpredictable? The answer was simple. Humans fought differently. Every other species in the galaxy followed ancient military traditions that had worked for millions of years. They moved their fleets in standard formations. They followed predictable patterns. They did what their enemy expected because everyone had been fighting the same way for so long. Humans did not follow those rules because they did not know them. Humanity had only been in space for 200 years. They had no ancient traditions weighing them down. They could innovate, adapt, and try things no other species would even consider. Engineer Taiyang made a breakthrough that changed the war. He figured out how to modify the ship's jump drives to make shorter, more precise jumps. Normal jump drives moved ships between star systems, but they took time to charge and could not be used in combat. Taiyang's modification allowed ships to jump short distances instantly, even during battle. The first time Captain Hyunwoo used it in combat, the enemy ships did not know what to do. The horizon's edge would appear behind an enemy vessel, fire and jump away before they could respond. Then it would appear somewhere else entirely and attack again. It was like fighting a ghost. How are they doing that? Avalos' captain shouted as his ship took another hit from nowhere. Ships cannot jump during combat. It is impossible. His tactical officer checked the readings again. Sir, the humans are doing it anyway. They do not seem to care what is impossible. That became a common theme. Humans kept doing things that were supposed to be impossible. They flew through radiation zones that should have killed them. They used tactics that should have gotten them destroyed. They took risks that no rational species would take. And somehow they kept winning. Commander Hae-won became famous across the fleet for her fighter tactics. She led her squadron through the Battle of Cronus Nebula, where the human task force was outnumbered 5-1. The nebula was filled with dangerous energy fields and gravitational anomalies. No sane pilot would fight there. All fighters, follow me into the nebula, Hae-won ordered. Stay close and trust your instincts. Her pilots followed her into the chaos. The enemy ships tried to pursue, but their sensors could not track through the interference. The gravitational fields tore at their hulls. The radiation scrambled their systems. Meanwhile, human pilots danced through the danger like they were born to it. Hae-won's fighter weaved between energy storms, her hands steady on the controls. She could feel the ship responding to her thoughts, every movement precise. This was what humans were good at. Improvising, adapting, surviving in conditions that would kill anyone else. Target the enemy command ship, she called to her squadron. Hit them hard and fast, then scatter. Make them chase shadows. The human fighters struck like lightning, destroying the enemy flagship before the Valos even realized they were under attack. Then they disappeared back into the nebula's chaos, leaving confusion and fear behind. When reinforcements arrived hours later, they found the enemy fleet scattered and retreating. The humans had won again, against impossible odds in impossible conditions. The victory reports spread across the galaxy and more species began to wonder. Were humans just lucky? Or were they actually better at war than everyone thought? Dr. Misun's most controversial weapon system was the cyber warfare AI. The coalition had strict laws against true artificial intelligence. They considered it too dangerous, too unpredictable. Humans had ignored those laws and developed AI systems specifically designed for electronic warfare. The AI could infiltrate enemy networks in seconds. It could corrupt communication systems, turn defensive weapons against their operators, and spread through digital infrastructure like a disease. When the Threen Collective tried to coordinate their fleet movements, they found their systems responding to commands they had not given. Their ships fired on each other. Their bases locked themselves down. Their entire military network fell apart. What is happening? The Threen High Command demanded. Who is controlling our systems? Nobody answered because nobody knew. The human AI left no trace, no signature, nothing to track. It just destroyed everything digital it touched and moved on to the next target. Colonel Jae-hyun's Special Operations Forces became a nightmare that enemy commanders feared more than anything else. They struck deep behind enemy lines, hitting targets that should have been unreachable. They rescued human prisoners from maximum security facilities. They destroyed manufacturing centers. They assassinated military leaders. The mission to rescue prisoners from the Threen homeworld became legendary. Intelligence said 3,000 human prisoners were being held in a facility deep underground, protected by an entire army division. Getting in was considered impossible. Getting out with 3,000 prisoners was considered insane. Jae-hyun did it anyway. His team infiltrated the facility, neutralized the guards, freed the prisoners, and fought their way back to the extraction point. They lost 20 soldiers in the process, but they saved 3,000 lives. When they returned, the prisoners told stories of human soldiers who fought like demons, who never quit, who came back for them even when it seemed hopeless. "We will always come for our own," Jae-hyun told his team after the mission. "That is what makes us different. Other species calculate acceptable losses. We calculate how to save everyone. That is why we win." But the war was not without cost. Human ships were destroyed. Soldiers died. Colonies were damaged in the fighting. Earth's hospitals filled with wounded. Families mourned their dead. Every victory came with a price, and the price kept getting higher. Captain Hyunwoo felt it every time they lost a ship. Every time a name disappeared from the fleet roster, it was someone he knew. Someone's friend. Someone's family. Someone who would never go home. The weight of it pressed down on him, making it hard to sleep, hard to think about anything except the next battle. Ji-won found him one night in the observation deck, staring at the stars. She sat beside him without saying anything for a while. "We are winning," she finally said. "The intelligence reports say the enemy alliance is falling apart. The Mordax clans are asking for peace negotiations. The Threen Collective has pulled back to defend their homeworld. Even the Valos Empire is wavering." "I know," Hyunwoo replied. "But winning feels heavier than I expected. We did what we had to do, did we? Or did we become exactly what the coalition always said we were? Aggressive, violent, dangerous." Ji-won was quiet for a moment. "We became what we needed to be to survive. That is different from being naturally violent. We did not start this war. We did not destroy colonies full of innocent people. We just refused to die quietly." "I hope you are right," Hyunwoo said. "I hope when this is over, we can remember how to be peaceful again." The turning point came when the Valos Emperor himself decided to lead a counterattack. He was old, ancient even by Valos standards, but he was also a warrior from the old times. He could not accept that his empire was losing to humans. He gathered his elite Imperial Guard, the finest soldiers in Valos space, and set course for Earth itself. If he could not win the war, he would make humanity pay the ultimate price. He would destroy their homeworld and break their spirit forever. The Valos Emperor's fleet was massive. 500 ships, all heavily armed, all carrying elite soldiers. They jumped into Earth's solar system without warning, bypassing the outer defenses and heading straight for humanity's cradle. Captain Hyunwoo was on patrol near Mars when the alert came through. The Horizon's Edge was one of only 20 ships between the Valos fleet and Earth. 20 ships against 500. It should have been a massacre. "All ships, this is Captain Hyunwoo," he broadcast on the emergency channel. "We are all that stands between the enemy and Earth. We cannot let them through. We cannot let them reach our homeworld. Whatever happens next, remember why we fight. Remember who we protect. Today we show them what humans do when everything they love is threatened." The 20 human ships formed a defensive line and opened fire. They knew they could not win. They knew they were going to die. They did it anyway because that was what humans did. They protected their own, no matter the cost. The Horizon's Edge took hit after hit, shields failing, armor melting, systems shutting down one by one. Taeyang worked frantically to keep the engines running. Ji-won kept targeting weapons even as her station sparked and smoked around her. "Captain, the hull is failing," Taeyang shouted over the alarm. "We cannot take much more." The war ended not with a dramatic final battle, but with a quiet surrender. The Valos Empire, having lost their emperor and half their military, asked for peace. The Threen Collective and Mordax clans, seeing the Valos fall, immediately followed. Within days, the three powers that had tried to destroy humanity were begging for mercy. The galaxy waited to see what humans would do. Would they take revenge? Would they conquer their defeated enemies? Would they prove that the ancient species had been right all along, that humans were too violent and dangerous to be trusted? Premier Insu stood before the human assembly once more. The chamber was different now. Representatives who had voted for war months ago now looked tired. They had seen the cost. They knew what victory had taken from them. "The enemy alliance has surrendered unconditionally," Insu said. "They are asking for peace terms. We must decide what kind of species we want to be. Do we take revenge for New Jeju and all the other colonies? Do we demand territory and resources as payment? Or do we show the galaxy that we fight only when we must and that we know when to stop?" The debate lasted hours. Some representatives wanted harsh punishment. Others wanted to rebuild and move forward. In the end, humanity's terms were simple and fair. Return all prisoners, pay reparations to rebuild the destroyed colonies, reduce military forces, agree never to attack human territory again. That was all. No conquest, no enslavement, no revenge beyond justice. The galaxy was shocked. Species that won wars did not show mercy. They took what they could take. That was how things had always worked, but humans were different. They had proven they could fight. Now they were proving they knew when to stop fighting. Admiral Su Min retired from military service 3 months after the war ended. She had become the most famous military commander in human history, but she did not want fame. She wanted to go home. She wanted to forget the faces of all the people who had died under her command. At her retirement ceremony, she stood before the gathered officers and spoke quietly. We won this war not because we were better at killing, but because we understood what we were fighting for. Every other species in the galaxy fights for territory or resources or pride. We fought for our right to exist without fear. That made all the difference. Never forget that. And never forget the cost. She left the ceremony without waiting for applause or speeches. She just wanted to be alone. Dr. Mi-sun dismantled most of her weapons programs. The technology remained in case it was ever needed again. But she shifted her focus to peaceful research. She had built the weapons that won the war, but she had nightmares about what they had done, about the ships they had destroyed, about the lives they had ended. Was it worth it? She asked herself late at night in her empty laboratory. Did we do the right thing? She never found a satisfying answer. She just kept working, trying to build things that helped instead of hurt. The Galactic Coalition called an emergency summit 6 months after the war ended. Every species sent representatives. The humans sent Counselor Bora, a former military officer who had lost her son in the Battle of Cronus Nebula. She was not a diplomat by training, but she understood what humanity had been through. High Counselor Vex stood before the assembled species and did something no Krell had done in recorded history. He admitted he had been wrong. The Coalition failed humanity, he said. We refused to help when they asked. We dismissed their concerns. We mocked their fears. We forced them to stand alone against aggression, and when they defended themselves successfully, we tried to contain them out of fear. We were wrong about everything. The chamber was silent. Other species looked uncomfortable. They had all made the same mistakes. Humanity has proven that age does not equal wisdom, Vex continued. They have proven that young species can be just as capable as ancient ones. They have proven that the Coalition's old ways are not the only ways. We must change. We must reform. Or we will become irrelevant. Counselor Bora stood up when it was her turn to speak. She looked around at all the different alien faces, some curious, some afraid, some resentful. Humanity does not want to rule the galaxy, she said simply. We never did. We just wanted to live in peace, to build our colonies, to raise our children without fear. You would not give us that. You left us no choice but to fight for it ourselves. Now we have it. Now the galaxy knows what happens when you attack humans. We hope you have learned. We hope this never has to happen again. She paused, gathering her thoughts. But do not mistake our desire for peace as weakness. Not ever again. We have proven we can fight. We have proven we can win. We do not want war. But we are not afraid of it either. The galaxy has changed. We changed it. Now let us build something better together. The Coalition voted to reform its structure. No longer would ancient species dominate decision-making. Every species would have an equal vote. Protection would be guaranteed to all members, not just the powerful ones. Military intervention would be authorized when needed, not ignored for convenience. It was not perfect, but it was better. And humanity had made it happen. The memorial on New Jeju was completed 1 year after the war ended. It stood where the main colony had been, a simple stone monument with the names of all 300,000 dead carved into its surface. At the top, in large letters, it said, "They deserved better. We will remember." Ji-won attended the dedication ceremony. She had left military service and returned to xenobiology research, but she would never forget what she had seen. She would never forget the burned shelters and the dead children and the emptiness of that destroyed world. Taiyang stood beside her, no longer the excited young engineer he had been before the war. He had aged in ways that had nothing to do with time. He had seen too much, done too much, but he was still alive, and that was something. Do you think Captain Hyunwoo would be proud of what we built here? Tae-young asked, looking at the memorial. I think he would be sad it was necessary, Ji-won replied. But yes, I think he would be proud. We remembered. We honored them. That is what he would have wanted. They were not alone. Thousands had come to the ceremony. Survivors from the war, families of the dead, soldiers who had fought, citizens who wanted to remember. They stood together in silence, each lost in their own memories. Admiral Su-min was there too, standing at the back of the crowd where nobody would notice her. She read every name on the memorial, all 300,000 of them. It took hours. She did not care. They deserved to be remembered, every single one of them. When she finally reached Captain Hyunwoo's name near the end, she stopped and placed her hand on the stone. We won, she whispered. But the cost was too high. I hope it was worth it. I hope we never have to do this again. Commander Haewon had accepted a new position training the next generation of fighter pilots. She was the best. So it made sense that she would teach others. But teaching meant talking about the war. And she was not sure she wanted to relive those memories. On her first day, she stood before a classroom full of young cadets who looked at her with admiration and excitement. They thought war was glorious. They thought being a fighter pilot was exciting. They did not understand yet. Before we begin, she said, I want to tell you about the Battle of Cronus Nebula. Not the version you read in the history books. The real version. She told them about the pilots who died, about the ones who made it back with injuries that would never fully heal, about the ones who survived physically but broke mentally, about the nightmares and the guilt and the weight of taking lives, even enemy lives. We won that battle, she finished. We won the war, but every victory came with a cost. Every life we took was someone's family member, someone's friend. War is not glorious. War is necessary sometimes, but it is never glorious. If you want to be a fighter pilot, understand that you are training to protect people, not to be a hero. Heroes die. Survivors are the ones who know when to fight and when to run. Remember that. The classroom was silent. The excitement had faded from the cadets' faces, replaced by something more somber. Good. That was the first lesson. Understanding what war really meant. The galaxy slowly adjusted to the new reality. Humans were now recognized as a major power. Their technology was studied and, where possible, copied. Their tactics became part of military doctrine across multiple species. Young civilizations looked to humanity as proof that you did not need to be ancient to be successful. But humans themselves were still processing what had happened. They had gone from being dismissed and ignored to being feared and respected. They had proven they could fight, but in doing so, they had lost something of their innocence. They were not the optimistic newcomers anymore. They were a species that knew war's true cost. Premier Insu addressed Earth one last time before stepping down from leadership. He looked older now, worn down by the weight of decisions that had cost so many lives. We did what we had to do, he said. We defended ourselves. We protected our people. We proved that we deserve respect. But I hope the children growing up now will never have to do what we did. I hope they will inherit a galaxy where being human means being free, being safe, being able to build and explore without fear. That is what we fought for. That is what we must never forget.